Welcome back to Public Affairs on Peach. One town has had enough with door-to-door scams. Now they're taking matters into their own hands. It's called a do not knock list, and it's aimed at keeping solicitors and scammers off your front porch. Jen Picciano shows us how it works.
This 92-year-old is leery of those who come knocking at his Mayfield Heights home.
On my kitchen window, I put 2 car mirrors, one on each side, and that way I can see who's in my yard.
So he's ready to sign up for the city's new Do Not Knock list, which makes it criminal for solicitors to come to the doors of those who've signed up.
I think it's something that's very useful right now. We live in a crazy society and we don't know who's at our door.
Hundreds of residents have already added their name to the list, hoping to stop scammers from even setting foot on their property.
Because basically someone at my door is a telemarketer and I don't do business over the phone, and I certainly wouldn't do business at my home unsolicited. So, and also you're setting yourself up to some personal danger.
Most other cities in the county require solicitor permits, but Mayor Greg Costabile says it's difficult to enforce those, so this list will be distributed to anyone found trying to sell something door to door.
We think what we've done with this is we've balanced the issues of somebody who wants to solicit is still able to, but also we preserve the safety, health, and welfare of our neighborhoods.
And this list has teeth.
Once the person has a copy of the list and knows that the owner of this home does not wish you to enter their property, if you do, there can and will be a charge of criminal trespass.
Look at that, the do not knock list. I like the sound of that.
I like that.
What do you think, Cindy?
Well, I don't know anything about the do not knock list, and many cities I do know have also registration lists that if you want to do any door-to-door solicitation, you have to register with the city beforehand. But the Federal Trade Commission also has the cooling off rule. What the cooling off rule says is if you're selling something door to door over $25, you have to give the consumer a 3-day right of rescission in writing. You have to tell them they have 3 days to cancel that sale. And that's one of the rules that's enforced by the Federal Trade Commission.
How do you regulate that, though?
We get complaints, and that's how we bring our case. Okay. Again, we encourage consumers to complain to the FTC, complain to your Attorney General's office or the Better Business Bureau. From those complaints, we do a lot of law enforcement actions.
Okay, so as you mentioned earlier in the program, this is the 10-year anniversary of this do not call list. Yes. So where are we now, and how do we move forward to try to stop telemarketers from violating that do not call list?
Well, the FTC kind of has a multifaceted plan. Number one, we do law enforcement actions. To date, we've brought over 100 law enforcement actions against 291 individuals and corporations who are under order for violating the do not call registry and the do not call law. Those companies are not only telemarketers or fraudulent operations. Some of the other companies we brought actions against: DirecTV, Columbia House, Craftmatic, ADT Security Systems. A lot of companies that you've heard of, we've brought actions against for violating the law. We're also very, very actively trying to stop those unwanted robocalls, those pre-recorded calls. What are we doing? Law enforcement. We are really bringing a lot of aggressive law enforcement actions against those companies. But in addition, we're trying to do some other things. We're strategically gathering evidence. In fact, we have this thing called a honeypot, where we're trying to personally get some of those robocalls, get the information so we can do our investigations strategically. The other thing that we're doing is we're coordinating with criminal agencies, because we're a civil agency. We can take their money away, we can give it back to consumers when we get money, and we can put them under order. We're working with criminal agencies to put them in jail, and we've done that. In fact, here in Atlanta, we had one of the longest jail sentences against some robocallers that were calling people and promising them unwanted things. In addition, we're pursuing technological solutions. One of the things we did at the FTC, we had a robocall challenge. We had a $50,000 prize for folks out there who could come up with some solutions to help us stop these unwanted robocalls and to track down these fraudulent operators who are making these calls. So we've actually awarded the prize, and we're working with them now. Hopefully it will work and stop some of these unwanted calls. But one of the most important things you can do is, if you get these calls, hang up and complain to the FTC.
That's great information. Cindy, thank you so much. Now, you talked about how if people are receiving these calls and they're on the do not call list, they need to try to get as much information as they can and report it to the Federal Trade Commission.
Yes.
So let's give our viewers some information as far as how they can reach the Federal Trade Commission to file a complaint. What do we do?
The easiest way is to go online. There's two ways to go online. You can go to www.ftc.gov. Not only can you file a complaint there, but there is an inordinate amount of consumer information, just volumes of information for you about this and other scams and other issues that you might be facing. You can also go to www.consumer.gov. Very user-friendly and very great place to file a complaint or get consumer information. But if you want to talk to a live person, you can call 1-877-FTC-HELP. They can direct you in the right direction, and they can also provide you with some brochures and some information that can help you if you've been victimized. But most importantly, if you're getting these unwanted calls, robocalls, or just violations of the Do Not Call registry, make sure you complain.
Yeah, complain. And that was great information to post for our viewers, because you can sort of arm yourself and protect yourself from this becoming a future problem or,
Yes.
you know, advancing, because it's a problem for many of us, even being on this do not call list. It has improved, and you talked about that, but here again, there are still those companies that will go around the law and try to take advantage or get to the consumer. So by jotting that information down, contacting the Federal Trade Commission, you can arm yourself.
One final thing, though, I do want to say is there are some limitations of the Do Not Call registry, political limitations, as well as if it's a political or charitable organization.
Cindy Liebes, thank you so much for
Thank
being on
you.
the program from the Federal Trade Commission. Great information. Stay with us. We'll be back right after this to wrap up the show.